Well, howdy doody, and welcome back to my venture across the United States, where I visit each state and cover some of the urban legends and local mythology present in the area. Quickly, before we get started, if you like this channel, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment something if you can. Even just say hi. I love it when people say hi. It's a quick way to show YouTube's algorithm that this channel is worth watching. Going on, today we're visiting Nevada, the Silver State. Man, when I was a kid I went to Nevada once. I saw Siegfried and Roy, I'm pretty sure, stick their head in a tiger's mouth, and I never really wanted to go back again after that. But regardless, it's not just casinos and entertainment out there. No, there are haunted mines, caves rumored to harbor giants, and maybe even some extraterrestrials out here in Nevada too. Because of this, stick close with me today, and come with me, and let's see what kind of folklore we can find in Nevada. Number 1 is Area 51. In south-central Nevada, at least a good 24 miles from any semi-major roadway, is a place so secretive, so private, that it's drawn scrutiny, curiosity, and a cult following. The name, Area 51's origin, isn't really quite understood, but it's speculated to be based off of an Atomic Energy Commission numbering grid, although cryptically the number 51 is left out of that system, despite the area being referred to as Area 51 in some government documents. But regardless, the proper name for the facility is actually Homey Airport or Groom Lake, a dried-out lake directly to the north of Area 51. Sometimes, sort of lovingly, it's also referred to as Paradise Ranch, which was the area's original name as a way of encouraging folks to move out to such a remote location. Historically, this place isn't super significant, but the area that now houses Area 51 was once mined for lead and silver, on and off, until about the early 1950s. The real draw for Area 51 supposedly was the dried lake bed to the north of it, which would be ideal for testing experimental aircraft. At least that's what they say. The site began to be used as an Air Force airfield in 1942, originally as Indian Springs Air Force Auxiliary Field. At this point, up into the 1950s, the site was not more than a few shelters, hangars, and a control tower, and a runway with a movie theater and a volleyball court too to keep the employees sane. However, it didn't take long for this humble little Air Force facility to begin harboring some nasty little secrets, of which we only know the tip of the iceberg. Now we do know a bit about what's been done at Area 51. The government has conceded that starting in the 1950s through to the Cold War, the site was being used for the development of multiple Lockheed Martin fighter jets, which were top secret at the time, and during the Cold War, the site was also used to evaluate Soviet aircraft. But that's about where our knowledge of the site ends, and the conspiracies begin. Beyond this, we don't know a whole lot, but what we do officially know is enough to make you look out the corner of your eye. Not only is the area around Area 51 and the dried-up lake off-limits to civilian traffic, it's also off-limits to normal military air traffic. Additionally, security clearances are required to enter the site, and cameras are not allowed on-site. Even military personnel sent to the site for training are warned that they'll be disciplined if they pass into the airspace surrounding Groom Lake. Heck, it wasn't even until 1998 when the US Air Force officially acknowledged that the site existed. There's also one specific event that speaks to this site's secrecy that made me say, whoa, and I'm generally unfazed by this sort of thing. For me, the most eye-opening detail about the site comes from a quote in an article, Astronauts and Area 51, the Skylab Incident, in a journal named The Space Review that was published in January 2006. This article was based on a memo written in 1974 to CIA Director William Colby by an unknown individual working for the CIA. Basically, this memo stated that the astronauts had by mistake taken a photograph of a specific location. In the article, there are the following eye-opening quotes. I quote, "There were specific instructions not to do this. Redacted was the only location which had such instructions." Now, readers typically infer that the redacted spot was Area 51, being the only place on Earth that astronauts were not allowed to photograph. The writer of this article, based on the context, asserted that, I quote, "The CIA considered no other spot on Earth to be as sensitive as Groom Lake," or Area 51 in short. And if you know anything about Area 51, you know this isn't where the story ends, but rather where the facts end and speculation begins. In short, Area 51 is speculated to participate in the storage, study, and reconstruction of crashed alien spacecraft, specifically the alien spaceship that crashed in Roswell, New Mexico in the 1940s. There's also theories that diplomacy is conducted at the site with extraterrestrials, and some more fringe theories about weather control, time travel, teleportation, and meetings with a shadow world government. There's also a hypothesis that there's an underground portion of Area 51 referred to as S4 to the south, where folks claim there's a transcontinental railroad system and an airstrip that disappears. Folks claim that it appears when water is sprayed onto its camouflaged asphalt, and that it's based on alien technology. They refer to this airstrip lovingly as the Cheshire Airstrip after Cheshire Cats, and these claims were proliferated by Bob Lazar, who in 1989 made the claim that he worked in the underground Sector 4, the underground area, on alien spacecraft owned by the government. Similar claims were made in the 1996 documentary Dreamland, which is named after Area 51's approach control call sign, by an individual named Bruce Burgess, where he claimed he worked on flying disc simulators based on extraterrestrial aircraft, which were used to train pilots to fly them. There have also been supposed ex-employees that claim to work on everything from telepathy to cloning alien viruses. Admittedly, the folks making these claims are often met with skepticism, as they make outlandish claims that don't make a whole lot of sense sometimes, but given the government doesn't want to chime in, I guess they're the best we've got right now, so I digress. Now, as for what many government folks think is actually responsible for all the UFO sightings in the area of Area 51 that people say are aliens, they think it's simply what we know already, that civilians, knowing no better, are observing experimental aircraft doing amazing and seemingly impossible things, and attributing these feats to beings or technology from another world. Additionally, veterans of Area 51 continue to claim that there's no vast underground railroad or Cheshire airstrip, but they do admit that there are some underground operations at Area 51. And finally, I've got to talk about people that are trying to get into Area 51. With all of this candy on the other side of Area 51's fence, you'd best bet that some folks have tried to get their hands on it. For example, in January of 2019, a man busted a truck through an Area 51 security checkpoint, leading officials on an 8-mile pursuit, and in the end, sadly being put down by security officers after exiting his car with something that was construed as a threat. There's also the recent Area 51 raid, which was originally posted to Facebook as a joke, and through the power of memes, gained more than 2 million respondents who claimed they'd be storming Area 51 in September of 2019. These folks wanted to, I quote, "see them aliens," and said, "they can't stop us all," to which the government responded by saying they would, I quote, "discourage anyone from trying to come into the area where we train American armed forces." Instead, the folks trying to raid the base were diverted to 2 ongoing music festivals in the area, attracting thousands of individuals. Now, about 150 people actually did try to storm Area 51, or they at least got near the gates, but nobody got hurt, and only 7 people were actually crazy enough to get themselves arrested. Number 2 is Gold Hill's Mines and the Gold Hill Hotel and Saloon Ghosts. Gold Hill is an old town nestled in the hills of western Nevada. The city was formed in December of 1862 to avoid annexation by a larger town nearby, and the city's primary economic activity was mining gold and silver from the nearby Comstock lode, as well as a few other mines. In 1942, the War Production Board ceased mining operations that were non-essential for quite a while, dropping this town's population, but after the war, mining returned to Gold Hill, and to this day, the city and mining economy still exist, and historical remnants of the old town can be toured by guests. Among these historical remnants, perhaps the most well-known is an old hotel and saloon that, for much of Gold Hill's history, was a bar, hotel, and a brothel too. According to some stories, they say that if you want to see not just historical buildings, but also historical people, this hotel and brothel and saloon might just be your place. To start, there was a mine that ran under the hotel named the Yellow Jacket Mine, which employed many of Gold Hill's residents. In this mine, a fire broke out in 1869 that ended the lives of 47 miners. Given this mine ran directly underneath the hotel, some odd occurrences in the hotel and saloon these days are attributed to miners who passed away in the mine's fiery blaze. Much of the activity is said to occur in the hotel and saloon's Rosie Room and Williams Room. In Williams' room, it's said that if you smell the scent of tobacco, that the ghost of one William, a miner who passed away in the aforementioned fire, might be nearby. And if he is nearby, he might be a jokester to you. In one account, an individual staying the night in Williams' room purposefully left the door unlocked so that his friend could get back in, but Shortly after smelling a whiff of tobacco, he heard his friend pounding at the door asking why he was locked out. Also in William's room, it said that sometimes you can hear ghostly children running around and playing, and that sometimes when you hear them, you might smell the wonderful odor of cookies in the air. Nobody's quite sure where these children come from because, as I said, this location was a hotel, brothel, and saloon, but regardless, this is reported. There's also Rosie's room. Now, Rosie obviously resides there, thought to have been a worker at the old brothel, and they call her Rosie because, well, she smells like roses. It's said that you can tell she's there from her smell, or if you're experiencing lights flickering and personal belongings being moved or lost. I've said something like this before, but Rosie must live in my house because my keys and wallet are pretty much never where I left them. There's also a room named the Great Room. In this room, plenty of hotel and saloon patrons can be seen drinking and fraternizing, but additionally, it's said on rare occasions guests have caught glimpses of a patron from the past enjoying a drink in the afterlife. Sometimes these individuals are even approached, and when you talk to this individual that looks at a place in old-timey clothes, they'll first ignore you before slowly vanishing before your eyes. Now, if you're interested in seeing all this for yourself, you're welcome to visit Gold Hill and stay the night at the Old Hotel and Saloon. It's still in operation after all, and while you're there, stop in for one of their monthly ghost tours. Now, you won't see me there, but if you've been there, chime in the comments and let me know if you saw a ghost. Number 3 is the spirits of Dell H. Robinson Middle School. We've learned on this journey through the USA that a place doesn't have to be old or necessarily decrepit to harbor spirits. Dell H. Robinson Middle School opened in 1973 and fits this bill of a haunted place you wouldn't expect to a T. Now, this school is a middle school located in the Las Vegas area that's still in operation to this day, but as scary as 6th and 8th graders can be, there's an even spookier reputation for something else that lurks in the halls of this building, which so aptly represents itself with an angel for a mascot. See, students aren't just going home and telling their parents about bullies or nagging teachers, rather, sometimes, they and the staff working there report to see spirits wandering the halls of the middle school. One recurring tale told by the students is that they'll see a new or unrecognized janitor wandering the halls. When they get close, they notice that his hands, which they thought were dirty, are actually covered in blood, and usually this janitor is seen in the halls, but sometimes the students have claimed to see the ghost follow them home, even seeing the bloodied janitor wandering the roads a few blocks from school or watching them from outside their house. Perhaps the creepiest bit of this tale states that students that transfer to this school, new kids in other words, have the greatest chance of seeing this ghostly janitor. Now, if you're wondering if this urban legend is real, I cannot confirm or deny. Unlike others on this list, there aren't any specific red flags for this being false, other than the fact that, as we know, adolescent youth are fantastic harbingers of folklore, twisting, developing, and changing it year after year like the flu virus. I can, however, assure you that there are no documented passings on the property of the school, so as far as facts are concerned, there's definitely nothing explicitly pointing to who this janitor might have been in his past life. Number 4 is the red-haired giants of Lovelock, Nevada. Lovelock Cave, previously known as the Sunset Guano Cave, Horseshoe Cave, or Loudside 18, is a small cave of about 1,500 feet in length and 35 feet of width that dwells in western Nevada, about 73 miles to the east of Reno as the crow flies. This cave, like many, was formed by tidal actions from the nearby dried-up lake, Lake La Hontana. Speaking of drying up, this region of Nevada is extremely dry, hence why this region of Nevada and other parts of California nearby are so well loved by those interested in classic cars. But do you know what else ages well in dry climates? Ancient artifacts, but also bodies. See, back in the early 1900s, folks took to mining in these caves for bat guano or poop, which, before the famous German, Fritz Haber, discovered how to produce fertilizer synthetically, was how folks got fertilizer for farming. Now, over the past few thousand years, there was quite a lot of doo-doo in this cave, so they supposedly removed a layer between 3 and 6 feet in depth, or 250 tons in weight, of bat poop. And lo and behold, while they were doing this, they were discovering tons of artifacts left in the cave by ancient people, eventually contacting the anthropology department at the University of California to come and take a look. And this is where the whole saga begins. Between the early and late 1900s, so a fairly long period of time, this site was sifted for artifacts of all varieties. In this site, they found evidence of fossilized feces, evidence of types of birds eaten by historical people at this site, ancient well-preserved duck decoys made of a long grass that were used for hunting, animal traps, hand-woven slings, which are the earliest reported slings found in North America, and perhaps most notably, bodies. See, here's where the urban legend comes in. According to Paiute Native American oral history, there were creatures dwelling in this region around the cave named the Saiteka, which were a legendary tribe of red-haired, cannibalistic giants, although the translation could also be taken to mean barbarians. In native legends, the natives had a great battle at the site of the modern Lovelock cave where they fought and defeated the giants, so the discovery of bodies buried at this site lends to some credence to this mythology. Now, I should note that first off, it appears that ancient humans dwelled in this cave for thousands of years based on the radiocarbon dating of artifacts and feces at this site, but additionally, the human remains found in this cave were only about 6 feet and 6 inches tall, or about 2 meters. So, a lot taller than me, but I've met people bigger than that in real life. Going on from this, an author, Adrian Mayer, writes about this body in relation to the legends of giants and proposes that the interpretation that there were giants in Lovelock Cave may have just been an attempt, albeit a somewhat successful one since we're hearing about it today, at creating an urban legend to drive tourism in the region. As further credence to this, she suggests that some of the large mammoth and cave bear skeletons in the region could have been interpreted as giant bones, and that the red hair discovered on the skeletons wasn't actually the skeleton's natural hair color, and was rather a product of hair pigment being unstable after death, turning hair a rusty red color over time. Nowadays, you can actually still go into Lovelock Cave, you can hike in the region and such, and there's even, it looks like, some well-built wooden paths that run through the cave, if you want to step inside without disturbing the site. It's quite off the beaten path though, it looks like it's about a 55-mile trek from Interstate 80. If you've been, let me know though, and let me know if you've seen any giants out there. And last up, at number 5, we have the bodies in the Hoover Dam. Now, if you're all familiar with the American Southwest, you've probably heard about the struggles of water allocation from the Colorado River. Because of this, in 1922, the Reclamation Service, or the modern-day Bureau of Reclamation, submitted a report that called for the development of a dam on the Colorado River for help with irrigation, flood control, and power generation. Now, this dam wasn't necessarily easy to build. First off, influencing water flow on a river that affects 7 states means that a compact needed to be approved by the majority of states involved, and then that needed to be approved by Congress. Second, they had to get funding from the federal government. Eventually, though, this all went through, and $165 million of funding and enough concrete to pave a highway between San Francisco to New York. Later, a modern engineering marvel was built. Now, this construction was not without controversy and peril, though. Conditions were harsh when building the dam, with summer temperatures of 1931, the year they started building the dam, in particular having a daytime average high of 119.9 degrees Fahrenheit, or almost 50 Celsius. This in particular led to the passing of 16 individuals from heat stroke between June 25th and July 26th of 1931, just the first year of construction. 112 people passed away in total while constructing the dam, consisting of a Bureau of Reclamation employee, a surveyor, and mostly employees of 6 companies, the company that was in charge of building the dam. This number doesn't include those who passed from pneumonia, although there's speculation that pneumonia was just being used as a fancy word for carbon monoxide poisoning, so that 6 companies didn't have to pay workers' compensation to the workers or the families of those that perished. 42 workers in total were claimed to have passed from pneumonia, I say in air quotes, while working here, while 0 were listed as contracting CO poisoning. How convenient for the company. Anyways, now on one hand, while inexcusable, it was sort of par for the course to have people pass away on the job back in the early 1930s, given workplace safety wasn't anywhere close to what it is in the United States today. On the other hand, there's an urban legend about what happened to some of these bodies that makes you question whether, possibly, there was some truth to this morbid tale after the other injustices we've just heard about during the dam's construction. This urban legend states that due to the high amount of passings on the premises, it wasn't efficient to move workers off-site for burial, so instead, they just buried them inside of the dam itself, tossing them into the concrete mix and letting it set around them. There's even a few superstitions on the internet you can see where people point to odd occurrences being the fault of ghosts still dwelling in those trapped bodies. Well, lucky for us, according to the director of the Nevada State Museum and ex-Bureau of Reclamation employee, Dennis McBride, no bodies could have been buried in the Hoover Dam. The reason for this is that concrete was poured in layers, and these layers wouldn't have been tall enough to even reach the average man's ankles. Additionally, even if they jumped through hoops to make this happen, it would have compromised the dam's structural integrity, essentially creating a big bubble inside of the structure. Now, one worker did borderline become buried alive in the dam, but sadly, the story around this individual, W.A. Jameson, is a bit more brutal and morbid, because this was due to a bit of concrete collapsing while he was still very much alive, rather than anything intentionally happening to him post-mortem. Thank you all for joining me today on this journey through the desert. Now, how does this state rank for you? I think Area 51 gives it quite a few points, but my favorite I've done still might be Mississippi. Whatever, I digress. Now, as I said in my last video, I'm making these videos for free, but if you'd like to change that at no cost to you ever, I'd appreciate it. If you liked this video, subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss the journey through our next state, New Hampshire. But remember, most importantly, whether you just saw a flying saucer fly by or a giant popped out of a cave and looked right at you on your hike, don't you ever forget, it's always story time.